So Ermal, of course, in on our website we focus a lot on the college basketball as we scout, college players and prospects from the NCAA. And you had your own experience with college basketball in the U.S. And so I wanted to ask you if you can explain to us a little bit how it was for you, and how this opportunity presented to you, and overall, how much do you think it was important in your career to have that kind of experience?
So I'll start the answer to that question from the end. I think it was
Mhm.
the most important step that I ever took in my career, and I think it was so monumental that it changed my life. Actually, I got a
Mhm.
little lucky. I don't know that happens to everybody, but I very coincidentally, I guess it was written in the stars that my first college coach and the only college coach that I had was Chris Beard. So that was his first head coaching job in junior college. That was Fort Scott Community College in Kansas,
Mhm.
which at the time, we're talking about 1999. It was, the Jayhawk Conference in junior college in the States was one of the top conferences. That very year that I was a freshman there, Reggie Evans was at Coffeyville.
Mhm.
Gennaro Pargo was at Neosho County. So these were teams that were directly in our conference on the Eastern Conference of the Jayhawk, and on the Eastern Division of the Jayhawk Conference, and these are guys that I played against my first year. So I mentioned the names just to let you know how tough of a
Yeah.
of a conference it was. Junior college back then was really strong competition, and I wasn't very aware of it. But the way it went down, I was playing for Fenerbahce at the time. I
Yeah.
was I was always aware of college basketball because I would watch. Like, my first time that I watched college basketball was actually when UMass went to the Final Four with Calipari, and Marcus Camby was the guy that made a huge impression in me. So
Mhm.
we're talking about early '90s. But obviously, growing up in Albania, uh, you know, I didn't know about NCAA rules or anything like that.
Mhm.
So it was very normal for like every other European guy to go through signing a professional contract at an early age, leaving their country, et cetera, et cetera. And fast forward, after 4 years in Turkey, I felt like I wasn't maximizing my potential and developing the right way. And I was also lucky to have a couple of teammates who made a huge impact in my career, and namely, uh, Conrad McCree was monumental on that, because he was the first guy who was telling me, like, "Hey man, like, you're not playing much here. I mean, you're getting quality practice because you're practicing every day against Jean Tabak, myself and Conrad and other players, and I was in the same team with Mahmoud Abdul Rauf, Marko Milic, and but I wasn't getting much playing time. So he was like, "You should really consider college. You speak the language. You're smart. You can." And you'd be perfect for college basketball. So he kind of put that idea in my head, and he, made a call to Carr McCree, made a call to Syracuse, and they started recruiting me, and that kind of
Mhm.
opened my path into getting recruited by colleges. So that year, my last year in Fenerbahce in the season 98-99, I spent about 6 months getting ready for the SATs. So,
Mhm.
and I took the SATs, but the results came so late that I couldn't register for the fall uh, semester. And
Mhm.
by that time, I had decided I wanted to go to University of Texas. But because I couldn't register there, the coach that was recruiting me from Texas, Coach Ed Catala, he gave me two options. He said I could either go to a prep school or I could go
Mhm.
to a junior college. But he advised me going against prep school because at the time prep schools were not very competitive, uh, both the games and also the developing part. So I decided to go to junior college, and
Mhm.
that's how it started. And it's there where I kind of, Coach Beard made a big impression in me, and he helped me really maximize and even, get even deeper into myself and finding how resilient I was, how tough I was, and changed completely, reshaped my work ethic. The main thing that I learned from him was that I was always a hard worker, but up until I met him and I kind of uh, got introduced to his methods and the classic American style of basketball, I felt like I wasn't working efficiently and effectively. Like I was working hard, but without really knowing what I was working toward. You know, I always had big goals since I was little. You know, I was going, you know, since I was little, I was telling myself I'm going to go to the NBA. I always had these big goals, but I wasn't really maximizing my efforts into being effective and efficient in my work. So um, that's what college basketball changed. Even though this was just junior college, you know, don't get me wrong. Like I didn't manage to play NCAA because afterwards I had different steps in my path that proved to be problematic from my previous experience as a pro player in Europe. So first, I was unlucky because at the end of the year in Fort Scott, I signed to go and play at the University of Tulsa for Coach Bill Self. But right after I signed a letter of intent, Coach Self moved from Tulsa to University of Illinois, and I unfortunately could not get out of my letter of intent. University of Tulsa and Coach Buzz Peterson, they didn't want to let me out, so I had two options: either to go back to Europe and start my new career there, or go back to junior college. I decided to go to junior college and play for Coach Beard, who at the time had moved from Fort Scott to Seminole State College in Oklahoma. So I played another year. I was preseason All-American. We had a great season. We were fourth in the nation with Seminole that year. At the end of that year, then Coach Bobby Knight got hired by Texas Tech University, and he was actually driving from Indiana down to Lubbock for the press conference. And during that trip, he had a couple of pit stops where he was going to watch these junior college guys, and I was one of them. And he came to Seminole. He worked me out for a couple of hours, offered me on the spot, and he also hired Coach Beard right on the spot. So Coach Beard gets hired by Texas Tech. I signed a letter of intent to go to Texas Tech. And then the NCAA came in and said that, you know, I had a previous professional experience. So I was probably looking at like a 30 to 35 game suspension, which would have meant my entire junior year. So I did not want to take that risk. And I was most probably going to be ruled ineligible because I had the intention to become professional, as they put it. And my former club Fenerbahce was creating problems. They went to the NCAA and complained that I had a professional contract, and they spent a huge amount of money, which was not true. But anyway, they did what they thought was best for them to protect their investment, and I was trying to do what was best for me to protect my own investment toward my career. So at the end of the day, after 2 years in junior college, I came back to Europe and signed to play in Split. But those 2 years were so valuable because they first of all, they taught me an important part of, I learned more about myself that I ever knew. Like I was more resilient than I thought I was. I was tougher mentally than I thought I was, and that kind of opened the gates for me and completely reshaped my mental state, my ability to take on challenges. And like nothing was hard after that. You know, you go to junior college in Fort Scott. We had this. It's called Arnold Arena. It's called Arena, but it's pretty much a barn. It has like the basketball court, and then it's divided in the middle with a single brick wall, and on the other side is a rodeo. So basically, when you're playing basketball, you can hear the bulls and the horses on the other side, and the cowboys. And it was a great experience. I loved it. It was, you know, it was so humbling, and it was amazing. But it was tough, you know, like our program didn't have any money. Like we would get cheese sandwiches, drive 5 hours in vans to play the game, and then eat those cheese sandwiches, come back way past midnight back to Fort Scott. And then the next morning you had to be in either morning practice or be in class at 8 a.m. So it was great. It was, you know, it showed you a lot of what you need to be doing to, you know, tackle your responsibilities, you know, be a student, be an athlete, and all that stuff. And God, when I see what college athletes go through these days with the NIL and all that situation, it's totally like something like you could not envision back then.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
And
it was a long response, but
no,
I had
no,
to
it's
tie it all
yeah, no,
together. So.
absolutely. And since you mentioned, in the end of your response about the NIL deals and the current situation in the NCAA, of course, many things have changed since your time in the NCAA. I wanted to ask you, what do you think the current situation in the NCAA, how much of an impact is going to have also on the NBA? Because now players are, they tend to stay longer at school because they can learn, they can have good money there. But there is also the tendency for European players to go to the NCAA because they can make even more money than in Europe. And so European teams, they tend to lose their talents very early. So how do you think these changes in the NCAA have impacted the professional world?
So yeah, that's a good question. I don't think that it impacts the NBA too much. The NBA is always going to be the NBA, and I don't think that there is anybody who can rival it, both from uh, uh, a level standpoint in terms of the quality of basketball played, and definitely from a financial aspect. I think it's weeding out some of these guys that I think they take that step too early, try to leave school too early and get into the draft, and then they realize that they're not among the 60 best players in that draft for some reason, and they end up starting their career a little too early. Whereas if they could have stayed in school maybe for a year or two, they could have gotten better. We tend to see all these guys that stay a little longer. They have more maturity, and they're better prepared to have a more solid career as pros. They're not as enticing perhaps for some people because we're always looking for the next shiny thing. We're looking for the 18-year-old who can score and dunk and shoot and do everything, but they're very rare. And I think that there's always value in players who know how to play the game at a high level fundamentally. Because at the end of the day, the top prospects, the LeBron James and the Giannis Antetokounmpos and the Steph Currys, at some point you realize them, and they detach themselves from the herd. But we're always looking for the winners, the glue guys, the Bruce Browns of the world, or the like the Trevor Arizas and the Jeff Greens, and these guys that make a huge impact on team basketball, that help you win games. Like Terrence Mann, for example, because I work for the Clippers. So Terrence Mann for us is somebody like that fits that mold. Like he was in college for 4 years. He played glue level basketball. Like he was one of those guys that help you win games, and those are the guys that I think the NIL might help those type of guys to stay longer and actually reach that level where they can help at the next level. It does have a huge impact on European basketball, I believe, because it as you mentioned, first keeps some of these guys in school longer, so there is less players for European teams to take on, but also takes their best talent. Now the European basketball is not competing only against the NBA and the two-way contracts, it's also competing against colleges. So it definitely has a domino effect there to compete against when it comes, especially financially. But yeah, like I think we need a couple of more years for this NIL situation to kind of clear itself up and see, because right now they're still trying to regulate it in a proper manner. I don't know what the solution will be. I'm not very involved with it, but for what I've seen, I think that there is attempts and efforts to make it a little bit more regulated, where there is some more structure to it, so at least everybody knows where they stand. And once that gets in there, and then European teams will see where they stand, and because right now everybody's kind of shooting in the dark. They don't know what exactly what's going on and how to deal with it. So once the rules are a little clearer, then maybe we will have more clarity on both the European side and the professional side back in the States.
Okay. And
That's my opinion anyway.
Yeah, of course. And as you mentioned, now you have been working for the Los Angeles Clippers for several years now, and that process kind of started right away after the end of your career, after the end of your professional career. So I wanted to ask you if you could explain to us how it all started for you. You know, that opportunity with the Los Angeles Clippers. You know, the process. Who reached out to you first, and how everything started?
Well, I actually stopped playing. I finished my career exactly because I had the opportunity to start working with the Clippers. But it was a process that was a little bit was in the works for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
When I played in Spain in Valencia in 2008, the person who signed me there was Johnny Rogers, was the
Mm-hmm.
GM of Valencia at the time, and we stayed in touch over the years, even after I left Valencia, and we became very good friends. And soon after he was done working in the EuroLeague, he started to work for the OKC Thunder as a scout. And so he would reach out to me regularly and asking about my teammates. I was at the FS Pilsen at the time and
Mm-hmm.
Anadolu FS later. And I was playing with guys that had were NBA prospects, you know, from younger guys like Jedi Osman to older players that were like the Jordan Farmers and the Josh Ships and Stanko Barases of the world. So, you know, Johnny would call me and ask me, and he would ask me about players I played against, you know, in the Turkish league, in the Euro League, and so I've always been a basketball junkie. You know, I've been following basketball since I was little, so I've always had an affinity. Like I was very um, let's say it was in my blood, let's say. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like I always liked talking about basketball, and I've always been a social person, so I've always had a huge network of people everywhere I played against. In every team that we played against, I always had somebody that I knew, and so like Johnny just pointed out that I had these qualities and that I should think about my career after basketball to be involved with basketball. I always thought I might end up being an agent or a coach, but pretty quickly I decided against those things. I was enticed by the idea of being a scout, pretty much traveling the world, watching basketball and getting paid for it, something that I would do for free. You know, it's just like, you know, it's a dream job.
Yeah.
So slowly, you know, Johnny started, you know, mentoring me about the job and telling me on things to look for and what to be careful on, like how to write reports and all that stuff. And he kind of helped me shape myself into that type of for that type of job, basically. And then my last year uh, playing in the season 2015-2016, I felt like the game slipped away from me. I was being asked to do things that I was not good at, like being a quick roller and finishing above the rim, things that I never did in my life. I was more of a close to the ground type of player. You know, I was not very athletic, so I was being asked to do more athletic things, and just by the way my physique was, and plus the way I played, there were just like things that I could not do well. So I figured like this, you know, this new brand of basketball is not for me. And it was very easy to make the decision after Johnny got hired by the Clippers as a director of pro personnel, and he was like, if you decide to stop playing and you want this job, it's yours. You just got to come to LA, you know, come talk to our guys here, and it's pretty much a formality. And that's what happened, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We jumped on a plane, went to LA. I met with the Clippers, and I got hired and started as a part-time consultant as an international scout, and up until 2019 when I was promoted into director of Pro International, and then 2021 I moved to the States with my family, and we've been in America since. So it's pretty much that's the gist of it.
Okay. And of course, in your role also as a scout, are there like specific elements or traits that you always try to look for in a player when you go on a scouting mission?
Well, absolutely. So the one that goes without saying, the players that we're looking at, obviously they need to have the talent, they need to have the
Yeah.
skill to play basketball at a high level. So that's the number one thing that you look at. Like somebody can be the greatest guy, he can be the hardest worker, but if he cannot play, then he cannot play, and there isn't much to think about.
Hmm.
We take that as default. But the main thing that we're looking for is character. I I cannot stress this enough. Like
Hmm.
the players that are going to play for us, they have to be high character guys. They have to be smart. They have to be hard workers. They have to be team players. They need to be guys that they're going to put the interest of the team above their personal ego. Obviously, we want guys who are resilient, who are competitive, who want to win at all costs. But the most important thing is how well do they fit our core group? Like we're looking for guys that are going to help us win, who are going to be glue players. So every time that we go there, obviously you look at the physical aspect of the player, you look at their athleticism, you look at their talent level, look at their skill. Can they shoot? Can they pass? Can they dribble? Which are the core skills of any basketball player who wants to play at a high level. You look at their footwork. You look at basketball IQ. You look at, uh, as I mentioned, physical tools and everything. But then you start looking for the little things. You look at their interactions with their teammates. You look at their interactions with the team manager, with the coach, the assistant coach, with the equipment manager, with the physio, with the trainer. You know, those are very important things. Like there's many times it happened to me where I'm in a game where I'm sitting next to a friend and they would ask me like, hey, what's the score? And I would have no idea because I'm focused. Like the game is being played on one side and I'm focused on the bench because the player that
Hmm.
I'm looking for is sitting on the bench and he's having like a temper tantrum, or I want to look at his body language of how they're acting when the team is playing well but they're playing poorly. Are they supporting their teammates, or are they just pouting on the corner because the coach called them out, or stuff like that, character
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And that I take notes on that because that helps me kind of lay out on what I need to do after the game. So if I see a player acting a certain way, I cannot be quick to judge them because there could be legitimate reasons why a certain player acts a certain way. So I need to talk to somebody that I know on the team. Could be a veteran player, teammate of that guy. Could be an assistant coach. Could be the head coach, or as I mentioned, the team manager or the trainer. So I want to get as much information as possible as to what happened, why it happened that way, and is this something that happens all the time? We're all
Hmm.
humans and we make mistakes, and some of us have a short fuse, some of us are more patient. So we have to like do a thorough job because um, I know this is going to sound very pompous or self-righteous, but
Hmm.
I always, every time that I go in a game and I look at a player, I always put myself in the player's shoes. And so I want to judge, I want to be fair toward that person that I'm watching, that kid that I'm watching, because I don't want to judge him for good or for bad without having the facts. I feel responsible that maybe I am misjudging a person because of one moment where he throws a bottle of water, and he might look like he's not a team player, which we all have had. I always go back to when I was a player. I would get upset at a lot of the referees calls, for example, and
Hmm.
I would get so upset because I was competitive, because I wanted to be on the floor. I wanted to play and help my team, or for different reasons, and I would hate it if somebody mischaracterized me because of one moment. So those are the kind of things that we kind of look, because everybody, at the end of the day, when you think about it, the people who are my bosses, they
Hmm.
can get on Synergy, they can get on any type of video, and they can watch the same game that I'm watching. So they're capable enough to evaluate a player's abilities, whether they can shoot or they can pass or whatnot. But there is a lot of stuff that the camera doesn't catch during the game, and that's why they hire scouts, and that's the most important part of our job, to catch what the camera doesn't catch. As I mentioned,
Hmm.
body language, interactions, and then also, you know, take a lot of intel about their off the court life. Do they take care of their body? Do they take care of, how do they care about their nutrition, their sleep, their If they go out or they abuse with, I don't know, alcohol or smoking or all this stuff. Like, these are all important information that we need when we create this file in the database for these players, basically.
Okay. And of course, before you mentioned the fact that for many guys coming out of college, of course, not every single one of them is going to land in the NBA. And a lot of them, they have to take the European route, the international route, going to play in Europe. As someone like you who has experienced the NCAA, the European professional leagues, top leagues, and now in your post-playing career, the NBA, what would be the suggestion that you would give to a guy who's making his first experience in Europe right after finish his college experience?
Well, obviously, if this is an American guy as opposed to a European guy who went to college, there is a difference there. I think that the most important thing that American players need to do is try to fit into the culture, not just the team, but the culture of the country that they go in, to understand the customs of the country. Not necessarily, if they can learn the language, that's amazing, obviously, because it will help them grow as humans outside of basketball. But more than anything, just to kind of learn the customs, understand more body language, understand the coaches, because it's different. It's not like in America. American coaches are different in their approach, and European coaches are different. They need to understand the body language. Like ex-Yugoslavian coaches, they have a lot of like hands movement when they try to explain themselves. They cannot take everything so personal. Those are the main things. So learning about the culture is the most important thing. Second, they need to adapt themselves into not just coming to score and be selfish, but also like they need to come to win. Now, basketball is basketball, whether it's the NBA, the G League, the EuroLeague. You need to play the game simple, but you have to be solid and fundamental and try to work on yourself. There is so many players you can see from players that have come from the States that have had long careers here. You can see what they've done. They have adapted, they have adjusted themselves without giving away their core of who they are. They've added the components that the European game gives to them. Like, you just cannot be original. You have to be open to change who you are and kind of adapt yourself to it. I think that's the most important thing that they need to do. I've been lucky to have played with some incredible American players during my time in Europe, from back in the day with Henry Turner and Dallas Comages back in Fenerbahce, but all the way down to Trajan Langdon, Antonio Granger, and Willie Solomon, and Henry Dahmerkant, and Drew Nicholas, and Jordan Farmar, Joshua Shipp. Like, what these guys did, it was very simple. They stayed true to their core, but they were open to learning from their new culture, whether that was Turkey, whether that was Spain, whether that was Italy or Croatia or Slovenia or whatnot. It's all about embracing the culture that you're going in, and then you can see, like, Drew Nicholas won the EuroLeague, and Jordan Farmar was one of the best players in the EuroLeague, just because they were open to the new challenge and the new experience. And they kind of like they did the best thing. They kind of put together the best of both worlds, and that's how they became successful. So the most important thing is embrace your role wherever you are, embrace the culture you're in, work hard, and just try to win. And I think after that, if you do all those things, then things have a tendency to figure themselves out.
Okay. Last thing that I wanted to ask you, in terms of EuroLeague basketball, in the last few years, there's always been this discussion about how expanding the movement, because the product on the court is great, but financially speaking, it's not a competition that is very sustainable. It's not a competition that gives a lot of money to the teams that participate in. And there's been discussion about how to improve this situation, and now there is this ongoing discussion about expanding the market, potentially bringing a team from Dubai in, and maybe doing even something more expensive. I was curious to know, what's your opinion on that, and do you think that the expansion is really the only way to make the overall product the better in EuroLeague?
It's a tricky question that requires a tricky answer. I don't know if I'm equipped well enough with the knowledge behind the scenes with what you just mentioned when it comes to Dubai or anything else. The one thing I'll say, though, it's very hard to replicate Panathinaikos against Maccabi, Fenerbahce against Efes, Red Star against Partizan, or Partizan against Real Madrid. Like, you can expand all you want. You can bring. What makes EuroLeague basketball so great is also, like, we cannot take for granted the history of these teams, the rivalry. So when you go in a sold out Nokia arena, Maccabi fans watching Maccabi play against Fenerbahce, they don't go there just because they want to see the players that are playing right now, but there is a history there. There is pride involved. Like, I might be sounding romantic, but as I said, I'm a basketball junkie. I'm somebody who grew up watching Jugoplastika back in the late 80s, early 90s. So, like, I am very emotionally attached to this issue. Like, with all due respect to any potential expansion teams, like, who is going to go and watch Dubai against Alba Berlin? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I get it.
Now, having said that, we need to be open to new platforms. We need to be open to new ideas. We have to be innovative. We need to find ways to make this product financially stable and sustainable. This has to start by some type of collective effort, because you have countries. It's not like we make the big mistake of comparing the EuroLeague to the NBA. Now, the NBA is in one country. There is one league. So this is different. This is different countries, different sets of rules, different laws. So it's not as simple. So there's a lot of, we tend to make things simple when they're actually a little bit more complex. But at the end of the day, we need to find a way for all these teams to come together and try to find a way to. I don't know if expansion is the answer, though.
The answer.
Okay. Maybe in a later time. But first, we need to consolidate these 20 teams that are in right now. I feel like there's too many voices. There is too many issues with the current group as it is. First of all, they need to find a common ground between these 20 teams that are in with the competitive part of the game needs to come back. It cannot, like, it's not that I'm against a closed league, but it has to be some sportive reward type thing. They need to find a way to make it work, because if they're not playing for anything specific, for something that will make this team successful in the long run, knowing that they're going to be there next, that's what makes European basketball. I'm sounding like I'm working for FIBA right now, but that's not my intention.
Oh, that's okay.
I want this to work so bad because EuroLeague basketball is so good.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
The product that we have on the floor, it's such a joy to watch.
Yeah.
I cannot wait for my trips to Europe to watch these games, because they just, like, you get filled with basketball and you just love watching it. And I just want for it to work so bad. I don't have the answer right now. The only thing that I can say is that I hope that these teams, they get together and they try to work toward a common goal and try to fix it, because I'm not sure that the expansion is the right answer, but they need to find a way. The TV money needs to go up more, and the second thing is fans. They need to be also more open to the idea of paying a little bit more to watch these games. And in order to make this thing watchable, they need the big teams, they need the good teams, they need the rivalries that will make people, okay, I'm going home because my team is playing against Partizan or Real Madrid, and I need to watch it. And I don't mind paying €100 a year for the EuroLeague pass. And we need to, bring in more people and more people that would do that. And then that collective effort would come together, and it will consolidate some type of success. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.